Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name is Heather Davidson. I am a lead naturalist at the Environmental Nature Center. Today we're going to be talking about introduction to bird watching and birding as a whole. But before we get started, I do want to shout out next week is Earth Week, and we are doing a lot of really fun stuff. We're going to be on Facebook Live talking about different sustainable practices you can do at home. We're going to have lots of YouTube videos on our YouTube channel, so be sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Environmental Nature Center, pretty much everywhere. So that'll be really, really fun next week. I hope that you all tune in. First things first, when you want to get started birding, you only need two things, and that is a set of binoculars and your favorite bird guide. So we'll talk about binoculars very briefly. First, there's a lot of different kinds of binoculars, and really it's up to personal preference. So this is just an average pair of binoculars that I think my parents bought for me when I was in college. So I'm not doing as much birding now that I've graduated, so just a regular old pair of binoculars is fine. If you feel like you need something with a lot more magnification, you want to see birds up close and really look at those finite details, something with a higher magnification is probably the right pair of binoculars for you. So binoculars are really a personal preference thing. The next is also technically a personal preference thing. In the world of field guides, there's lots of different bird field guides out there. This is my personal favorite one. It is written by Kaufman, and this one, the Sibley Field Guide, is a favorite of a lot of ornithologists. A lot of my friends really like the Sibley Bird Guide. If this is something that you like, go for Sibley. I personally like Kaufman a little bit better, so this is my personal favorite one. One thing about bird guides is that they're organized taxonomically, which means that they're organized by family, which is really, really helpful when you're out birding and you're trying to identify something. The easiest way is to find them in the bird guide is knowing exactly what family or an idea of what family the bird is in. So if you're looking at this page, for instance, it starts with all of the waterfowl, and they're all grouped together. So if you know that you're looking at a duck, you know to just go to the front of the book to look in that section for your bird, and then it varies. So we have all of our birds of prey together, chicken-like birds, sandpipers, and then the harder to identify passerines are all together at the end of the book. So this Kaufman Field Guide is really nice, how they tell you exactly what page numbers you want to look at. If you know that you're looking at a sparrow, it tells you it's page 344 through 363, which is really, really a good feature of this field guide. When you are out birding, a couple of things you want to be mindful of yourself and your own needs. So bring water, bring a granola bar with you, bring a hat, sunscreen, protect yourself first. Dressing in camouflage is also a really great way to kind of see a lot of birds. You're not wearing a bright orange t-shirt to scare the birds away. And then the next thing is to be mindful of those birds. So the best times of day to see various birds are in the very early morning, dawn, and then at dusk right before the sun goes down. Those are the best times to see birds. That's when they're the most active. So if you want to see a lot of birds, you have to get up with the sun and get out there early in the morning. When you are birding in the field, also you want to be mindful and respectful of the birds themselves. So oftentimes at different birding centers, they have things called blinds, which is, it looks like half of a tool shed, and you stay behind the blind. It has a little peephole that you can see through, and the birds can't see you. So they're more inclined to act naturally and not nervously because a predator is around. The next thing about respecting birds is there are a lot of cool apps that you can use that do include bird calls, and When you use a bird call, oftentimes you'll find that that bird comes up to you, which is not necessarily a good thing because they're defending their territory. So when you play a bird call, they're getting amped and they're nervous and they're saying, hey, get out of my way, this is my home. And so when you play that bird call, you're kind of making that bird a little bit angry. So you don't want to play bird calls when you're out there. And in fact, I believe it is illegal in national parks to play bird calls. So just be sure to respect those birds that you're looking at. When you are outside and you see a bird and you don't know what it is, you want to figure out what kind of bird it is. There's a few different things you can first look for. So the very first thing you want to look for when you are looking at a new bird is its body shape and size. So what is it shaped like and how large is it? Usually birders like to use an American robin as a point of reference because most people know what a robin looks like and what size. They're very, very common here in North America. So anything smaller than a robin or larger than a robin is good to think about if this bird is bigger or smaller. And then, is it shaped like a duck? Then you know what part of your field guide to look at. Is it shaped like an owl? You know what part of your field guide to look at. So shape and size is the first thing you want to look for. Then you want to look for color. So what color is that bird? Let's flip to a page, scan it. Oh, these are the different colors. It looks blue, so I'm going to look for a blue bird inside of my field guide. If you want to get really, really particular when it comes to identifying characteristics of birds, these are called field marks. So when you're looking at a bird, this is a white-crowned sparrow. So you can see that this bird has white stripes and black stripes alternating on the top of its head. That's a really, really big identifier for this bird. And then it has white underneath its chin is another big identifier. So when you're looking at your field guide, these are two nice field marks to look for. The shape of the beak is also helpful when you're looking at field marks. And then, does the bird have a ring around its eye? A lot of birds have a white ring, and then some who look very, very similar might not have a white ring at all. So that's a really good identifier. When you're looking for field marks, it's often easier to start from the top down. So our head first, then we'll go down the length of the body to our wings. And some birds have they're called wing bars, different patterns of white or any other color on their wing is a good identifier. And then you can go even further down to look at the tail and see if there are any identifying characteristics on the tail of your bird. So when you're looking for what kind of bird, the field marks are a really helpful identifier to figure out what bird you're looking at. So when you are out in the field, really you only need your field guide and your binoculars, maybe a small notebook to take notes on. There are times where I'm out hiking around and I don't have my field guide with me, but I did have a little piece of paper or even the notepad on my phone. So I see a bird, I don't know what it is, really, really excited, and I'm gonna write down some different characteristics. Oh, it had a red head, it had black wings with white spots on it, it was crawling up and down the length of a tree. What the bird is doing and where they are, what habitat they're in, is another good identifier, a helpful tip to find out which birds you have, because they don't all hang out in the same habitat. So what's that bird doing? And I'm going to write down some different notes, and then when I go back to my home, I can then open my field guide and see the notes that I have and then figure out. Drawing a picture of the bird that you see in the field is also a really good practice to keep when you're trying to identify birds. You've drawn that shape of the bird, so now you know what portion of your field guide to look at. And then also, if you can get a really quick picture of it, that's obviously the quickest and easiest way to give yourself a little note about what bird you need to look up when you get home. When you are out birding, there are a couple of really cool apps that you can use. And the first is this Merlin Bird ID. So what's really cool about this app is made by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, who do a lot of really cool stuff in the world of birds. And then you can do Start Bird ID. Oops. We'll go to our West Coast birds. Oh gosh. Okay, here we are. So when you press Bird ID, then it'll ask you where did you see the bird. So if you're doing it live in time, you can press current location, and then if you have your location settings on, it knows exactly where you are. So we're in Newport Beach right now. It's April 17th. And then here's where you have your size of your birds. Is it sparrow size? Is it robin size? Is it the size of a crow, or is it the size of a goose? So we'll say robin size for now. The next thing you want to look for are those colors, those identifiers. So let's say it's black, white, and red. And then what is it doing? It's in a tree. And what's really cool about this app, and I use this all the time, is then it'll give you a list of birds that it could possibly be in your area. So that is a really cool and helpful app that I use almost regularly. The next app that you can use is EBird, and we actually posted last week on our Facebook about EBird. So an EBird is a collection of citizen science data. So you and I could go out and go birding. We've made our list of birds that we saw. We saw 10 different birds. You can go onto eBird, write exactly where you were, what time of day, where, and all those different species, and then it goes to a huge database that everyone has access to. So one thing that I like to do is when I am going to go on a vacation somewhere, I like to look at eBird, and it tells me what birds might be in that area. So for instance, a couple years ago I went to Oregon, and I knew that I wanted to see some chickadees, I wanted to see an American dipper, which are birds that I couldn't see down here in California. So checked out eBird, it told me exactly where I should be looking, and I went to those spots and they showed me. So eBird is a really cool source of data for different birders, and it helps you kind of anticipate what you want to see. So if you are going to start birding, I recommend using your backyard birds first. Get familiar with them, learn their calls. One of my professors in college used to say a bird heard is a bird observed. So they're basically yelling their name. Their calls are very specific to their different species. So they're out there, they're saying their own name, and if you can identify a bird by ear, you know exactly who you're dealing with, which is a pretty cool skill to have. So be familiar with your backyard birds, and then use eBird to find different parks that have a lot of hot spots around your area that you could go to, and then it'll give you a list of commonly seen species. So then you can maybe even mark on your field guide, oh, we might see a western bluebird today. Here's what they look like, and then we'll keep a special eye out for them. So that is really, really, eBird is a super cool piece of technology to use. Well, I'm gonna post these tips and tricks for getting started. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the post below. I'll be monitoring it and answering your questions. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And just a reminder, be sure to check in next week, Earth Week. We're posting a lot of really cool, sustainable ideas that you can do at home, in your kitchen, in your laundry room, etc., etc. So it'll be really, really fun. Thank you so much. Bye.